If you look back at 1990s corporate culture, like the kind we see in that classic 1999 movie Office Space, you probably think, wow, what an absolute nightmare. I mean, it's widely considered one of the most cynical comedies ever made about working a soul-crushing job at a totally generic company. But what if I told you that looking back, those dull office environments and isolating cubicles were actually a luxury compared to today? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely challenge everything you've been taught about finding a career, pursuing your passion, and what makes a job truly good. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this, because when you rewatch a movie like Office Space today, you might start noticing something a little, well, unexpected. The whole core of this comedy is a commentary on working a boring job at a boring company. And sure, the writers took a lot of creative liberties to make the main character, Peter Givens, and his working environment look incredibly terrible. But honestly, over 20 years later, it doesn't look that bad. Actually, scratch that. If we look closely at what Peter had, his supposedly terrible work environment looks incredibly luxurious today. Just take a look at the physical setup he had. Back in 1999, Peter had his own office cubicle. Yes, okay, it was gray, it was completely uninspiring, but you know what it had? Walls. He had actual privacy. Compare that old school cubicle to the modern workplace we're used to now. Today, the vast majority of workers are stuck in these open-plan offices with absolutely no walls in sight. You're just exposed to constant noise, endless visual distractions, and this inescapable feeling of constant surveillance. Having a physical boundary between you and your coworkers, or worse, your boss, is a massive luxury that most modern workers literally no longer have. And it goes way beyond just physical walls. Think about the boundaries of time. In the movie, Peter is allowed to go on these extended lunches with his colleagues. And when his over-dramatized, awful boss asks him to come in on a Saturday, it's presented as a massive, uncomfortable request. Even the terrible boss knows it's a huge ask. Now, compare that to the 2020s. Being plugged in and available on the weekend is often just a baseline expectation. The boundaries between work and life have completely dissolved. So how on earth do we get here? How do we just willingly give up these basic comforts? Well, a big part of the answer lies in this incredibly famous quote: "Find a job you love, and you will never work a day in your life." We have all heard this one, right? It's that classic anecdote pushed heavily by school career planners and pretty much every LinkedIn guru on the internet. And hey, it sounds perfectly sensible. Most of us have to work, so why not find something that makes you excited to jump out of bed every day? But as we break down the data in our explainer today, we're going to set this quote up for what it really is. It is a cunning trap. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it reveals the dark, toxic underbelly of those highly aspirational industries. We're talking about those shiny dream jobs in gaming, fashion, travel, and sports. You might think getting paid to make video games or attending high-fashion events around the world sounds like a literal dream come true. But more often than not, big-name companies in these exact fields are absolutely terrible places to work. Why? Simply because they know you want to be there. And that translates directly into a culture of unpaid overtime, abusive management, comparatively low pay, and extreme staff turnover. Let's look at how this builds into a much larger systemic issue. The harsh truth here is that your passion is actively weaponized against you. Companies in these really exciting fields can absolutely get away with offering lower pay and demanding brutal hours, like those grueling coding crunches you always hear about. Why? Because candidates are just desperate to work their so-called dream job. Think about it. If you aren't willing to put up with the abuse and the low salary, well, there's an endless line of hundreds of equally qualified, starry-eyed replacements waiting right behind you. Your passion essentially strips away all your leverage as an employee. Furthermore, there's just this massive illusion of excitement surrounding these roles. Look, even the most thrilling jobs you can possibly imagine come with an immense amount of boring, tedious work. A video game tester isn't just sitting around playing games for fun all day. They are mindlessly replaying the exact same buggy level hundreds of times just to find a single glitch. And most people working for an NFL team, they aren't out on the field running plays. They spend their days sitting in an office answering emails, just like everybody else. Plus, being forced to do what you love for 40 hours a week under the constant threat of losing your livelihood is going to very quickly make you resent the exact thing you used to be so passionate about. Section title: Why Boring is Better: The Financial and Mental Perks of Unexciting Work. Let's keep moving. So, if exciting jobs are a trap, what exactly is the alternative? Well, taking a job that nobody dreams about at a company nobody gets excited by actually gives you a massive career and financial advantage. And this brilliantly illustrates the financial reality of the passion tax. Let's look at the automotive industry back in 2018. General Motors, a highly traditional, totally generic company, paid its median employee nearly $78,000. Ford paid its median employee over $64,000.
But what about Tesla? A business viewed as highly innovative, exciting, and world-changing. Their median employee made just over $56,000. That is the passion tax in action. When there are more people desperate to work at a cool company, that company can and absolutely will get away with paying their workers significantly less.
And we can see this exact same trend across entire industries. A regular old web developer is going to consistently out-earn a game developer. A marketing manager at a giant, unglamorous oil company like Exxon will make more than a marketing manager working for the New England Patriots. An administrative assistant at a local bank, they'll earn more than one working at Vanity Fair. Look, if your primary goal in having a job is to make money, then you should absolutely maximize the amount of money you get for your time. Because let's face it, you aren't going to see your name printed on the side of the corporate headquarters anyway. But, beyond just the money, there is a massive divide in the quality of management. At a boring company, managers are usually pretty experienced, and they view the work as exactly what it is, a job you do to put food on the table. Because they aren't trying to aggressively climb some flashy corporate ladder, they don't take it personally when you ask for a raise or actually want to take a vacation. On the flip side, managers at passionate companies have very often drank the Kool-Aid. They genuinely believe they are changing the world. And because the company mission is viewed as this sacred thing, they easily excuse toxic culture, extreme overwork, and even straight-up verbal abuse as just heated disagreements among passionate peers.
So the crucial point is perfectly captured by this famous phrase, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. I mean, even the most exciting job on the entire planet will quickly become unbearable if you have a useless, abusive manager taking all their shortcomings out on you. By purposely choosing a boring job, you drastically increase your chances of finding an experienced, level-headed manager who won't make your daily life totally miserable. They provide a stable environment, one that allows you to progress in your career and, more importantly, actually enjoy your life outside of the office.
And honestly, this totally reframes our pop culture habits, doesn't it? It perfectly explains the phenomenon of comfort binge watching. Think about it. We constantly rewatch late 90s and 2000s comedies like The Office or Parks and Recreation. Why do we do that? Because despite highlighting the absurdities of a boring workplace, these shows portray incredibly comfortable, stable environments. The people stick around for years, and even the bad bosses aren't truly abusive. We turn to these shows because we secretly crave the safety and predictability of those boring offices, especially in a modern world that is completely filled with toxic hustle culture.
So here is what you should really take away from all of this. It is time to stop chasing a passionate nightmare that's just going to drain your energy, underpay you, and burn you out. Seriously, start actively looking for a boring job. Look for a job with physical walls, decent pay, and an experienced manager who actually respects your weekends. Use the money, the stability, and the free time from that boring job to fund and pursue your actual passions on your own terms.
That is how you win the game. It's all about leveraging your job as a tool for your life, rather than making your job your entire identity. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Will you keep grinding yourself into the ground for a company's prestige? Or will you find a boring job that actually gives you the freedom, the funds, and the mental energy to live your dreams? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll catch you next time.